Overall, the reoccurring theme from this conference has been that there's been a lot more questions raised than questions answered. I came away from this awesome expo with a really different conclusion than I thought I would. And I guess the word that I'm feeling as well is liberated. I am so excited to put out some videos over the next couple weeks talking about the Ozarks Homesteading Expo that I had the blessing of being able to attend this past weekend with two of my daughters. Now, what I expected to get out of the expo, out of the classes, was a lot of information to then come home and apply. So I'm pretty surprised to find myself having gathered a whole bunch of information, coming home to maybe do less. So the whole expo was awesome, and everything was just timed so providentially, I believe. So the first class I went to was about butchering pigs, and I learned some really helpful information. I want to graze kuni pigs, and so it was helpful to see how the slaughter of a pig goes, what kind of supplies I would need to have, what kind of tools, and how that works. So I was looking at the schedule, and I pretty much had both days packed back to back with classes, maybe even getting out of the end of one class to go to a different class. And I believe that the class I went to after processing pigs was about foraging the Ozarks by Bo Brown, and I was able to get an interview with him also, which was fascinating. And that class had a pretty profound effect on me. He has 30 plus years of experience with foraging the Ozarks, and a big point that he was trying to drive home was that all around us we have all of these plants that are growing in their native location, in their native soil, these things that we consider weeds that have huge amounts of nutritional value, and we just overlook them. And instead we, for the past many thousands of years, have been uprooting plants that we want from one location and trying to create an atmosphere for them in a garden. And there's nothing wrong with gardens per se, but he was really emphasizing that if we look around, there's tons of plants with a huge diversity of nutritional value that's all around us. I decided to pick up Dinkins because she was falling pretty far behind and she kept meowing. Poor thing. But I'm happy she wanted to go on a walk with me. I think she wants down. Good girl, leave it. Good girl. So now, between classes, I was able to get some interviews with people, which will be in some future videos. Some volunteers, some vendors, some participants, and the girls were able to do some fun things as well in the stone building that they had. But I think what happened next was probably the most profound time that I had at the conference, and it wasn't even a class. So I went back up to one of the pavilions, and Pork Rhyne, that's his business name, his alias, I guess, Ryan, was sitting at one of the speaker booths. He had done a Q&A about raising pork. He helps people on a small scale to raise pork well and plan for success for their homesteads. This was my first introduction to meeting him. So he was kind enough to let me just sit down and chat with him. We probably talked for 45 minutes while the girls made some friends under the pavilion. And I got to talking to him about, I'm interested in kunis, and I got some information about that, about the pigs from him. And then I started telling him the things that I want to do and the things I'm striving for. And like me, he's a believer in Christ. And as soon as I started telling him all the things that I'm up to, he was like, whoa, basically. And long story short, he has this principle that we have 5 slots in our life. And number 1 is God. Number 2 is going to be our spouse, if we have one. Number 3 is our kids. And so the idea would be that we only have 2 slots left, and no, all of homesteading can't fit into one of those slots. It's each animal, pretty much. And so he was telling me, kind of for the first time, you can't do everything. You can't raise all these different animals, especially not since it's just me doing the homesteading, because my husband's not interested in it. That's fine. But I think he's kind of the first person who has graciously encouraged me and graciously told me, no, we weren't designed to do it all. We weren't meant to do it all. We are meant to live in community. So I've been thinking a lot about that. Overall, the reoccurring theme from this conference has been that there's been a lot more questions raised than questions answered as far as where this homestead is headed, but in a really good way. I could tell even in my talk with Ryan, and I even told this to him, I said, I'm feeling some resistance to what you're saying. I'm hesitant because I've been operating under this idea for so long that I want to raise 100% of my own food, and I can do it because I can, and and I think the Lord was making it pretty clear that some part of that, maybe some significant part of that, really was just kind of wrapped up in pride or in wanting to do all the things just to prove to people around me that I can do all the things, that I'm not a failure. So in some ways, I've been feeling or putting these chains on myself of wanting to do all the things and feeling like I can't not do all the things, that I have to keep up with the chickens and the rabbits and start and get ready for pigs and keep up with the bees, not to mention the orchard and the food forest and making my own compost. And those are all awesome things. But according to Ryan, I only have 2 slots. So I was really mulling over that all Friday night into the wee hours of the morning as my daughters and I camped. And for the first time in the past couple of years, I saw how kind of close-fisted I've been about all the things that I want to do on the homestead, instead of having an open hand and asking, what does God want me to do? And more importantly, how can I glorify God with my life? Because these videos, the work that I'm doing, it's important because I am part of the holy priesthood. These things I do have value. And yet, am I doing it to the neglect of my children? Am I doing it to the neglect of my husband? Am I doing the things that I'm doing well? Like taking care of a dog and a cat who's really far behind now. Or am I just doing everything kind of okay? So I've been realizing this weekend too that there's kind of a tension between you learn something and you just have to try things and experience and gain experience, but there is a lot to learn as well. And that can be really advantageous and time-saving in the long run, so you're not wasting time fixing oversights or mistakes. So then Saturday morning, the first class that we attended after packing up our suitcases from the KOA in Lebanon, Missouri, was about milking a cow. And that was great because I've toyed with the idea of milking a cow, and then in the midst of all this I'm thinking, wow, maybe I'm doing too much, maybe I need to do less, maybe I need to focus and prioritize in different areas. And it was right around that time, Friday and into Saturday, that I got to talk with Sherry, and she who raises these heritage Devon cows, and I learned so much about that. And if I do get cows, I think that would be the breed that I would want to get. And she re-emphasized the importance of rotational grazing, and I was able to attend a class on rotational grazing and regenerative grazing and low impact agriculture, I think was the name of it. And again, everything just fit so well together, and it was so timely because I have these 4 paddocks forming, as I've shown in other videos, preparing for pigs. But in his talk, he was saying that he recommends not letting animals get back to the first paddock for between 20 and 40 days, and not letting your animals stay in one paddock. He recommends like moving them every day or every 2 days, 4 or 5 days tops. So I don't have enough paddocks for that. He actually recommends having 20 paddocks. And so I knew some about coonies, and I knew a tiny fraction of a bit about rotational grazing, but I just learned so much, and I was able to get a much broader picture of what kind of a setup I would need or want. And even there too, there was some hesitation and resistance because it was It felt like, man, I'm already halfway there towards setting up. I just want to finish what I have and try it, which may be kind of a foolish thing to do because I might waste a lot of time in the long run fixing problems, addressing disease issues. As I was talking to Sherry with the cows and thinking about kuni-kunis, I want to have a flock that's hardy and disease resistant and that I don't need to give antibiotics and vaccines to unless the animal is in dire need. And so in order to do that, I'm going to have to set up rotational grazing. Plus, I want to do that regenerative grazing so that the land gets healthier and healthier instead of less and less healthy. And then, kind of on top of that, the last class I was able to go to was by Victoria, who taught on rabbits, meat rabbits. And she highlighted another book from Megan at Living the Height Life, who talks about feeding your rabbits for free and needing to forage for them. And my idea with rabbits had been, okay, I have this lawn sweeper, I can catch grass once a week, I can give them a whole bunch of awesome clippings, which is mostly grass, but there's some plantain, clover, etc. in it if it gets tall enough, long enough. And I was giving it to the rabbits, trying something out, experimenting, and the rabbits would eat a little bit of it, but they just didn't seem that interested. And I thought, oh man, I don't know why this isn't working. So again, that's one of those things where I knew enough to be dangerous, where I thought, okay, I've got rabbits eat grass, they eat greens, this is what I'm gonna do. And she wasn't surprised when I asked her why they're not interested, and she said, no, there's too much moisture in that, there's not that much nutritional value in grass, they're not gonna be that interested. So here I am with my second system besides pigs, where I've been going down this path thinking it's gonna work and I'm gonna be set, I'm gonna be able to raise rabbits for free, and it's not gonna be as easy as I think. One of my original goals was to have a homestead that was both low maintenance and low cost. And I think for me, the higher priority is for it to be low cost, which is why I'm pursuing pasture-raised kuni-kuni pigs and why these Devon heritage cows sound so appealing, because they're hardy and they're used to foraging as opposed to having grains. They're not used to having grains. That's why I wanted to have rabbits. That's why I wanted to have my chickens out and free range. But I think what I'm seeing really clearly is that with rabbits, if I want to feed them for free, it's not going to be low maintenance. It's going to be something where I'm going to have to forage for their feed every day, if not every other day or so. So all that to say, I came away from this awesome expo with a really different conclusion than I thought I would. I was ready to come home, motivated to do more, and thanks to Ryan and the classes, and I think, again, the Lord's providential guidance in all those things, I'm home and I'm thinking, wow, I should really scale back, which is so good to see the Lord working in my own heart, because I had such a resistance to that idea at first. So I think the direction that I want and need to head much more intentionally is to focus on raising well the animals that I have, and just to keep learning, to keep being a student. And so I'm excited because I think what that means for the channel is that maybe I'll post videos less often, but I think I might post a lot more interviews or sharing the knowledge that I read or that I'm gaining along the way. I'm really interested in learning a lot more about the species of plants just right around me that I'm just oblivious to, starting to find them and to harvest them and to eat them and to increase my own gut's microbiome and to increase our health in that way. I love the idea of getting more acquainted with foraging, not only to feed my family for free with native nutrient-dense plants, but also to know what plants would be nutrient-dense for rabbits down the road. And I've been excited about having a self-sustainable flock, but I think I want to keep praying about it, but I think the direction that I'm going to head is to maybe go ahead and cull the roosters that we have, to go ahead and butcher them, and the older hens that we have, and just have chickens for eggs right now. And then maybe next year just go ahead and do meat birds so I can still raise them in an awesome, healthy way and have high quality chicken, but not need to sustain that flock all year long and feed them all year long. I'm also considering going ahead and nixing the rabbit project for now, putting it on pause so I can learn more about what the rabbits need and how to give that to them. So to my surprise, I'm actually feeling pretty optimistic and at peace and hopeful. I look forward to just learning more and to having more time, more quality time with my kids. My daughter has been expressing an interest in learning how to sew, and there was a sewing class for kids at the expo, and it taught them how to do a simple stitch, which was so fun, and she loved it. And I guess the word that I'm feeling as well is liberated. I mentioned in a video a few months ago how I recognized that I'm not a slave to my projects, and that's always true because I'm a slave to righteousness and not a slave to sin anymore. But I don't know what it is. I still have these beliefs that I'm going to be more satisfied, more fulfilled if I have all the things, if I have all the animals, if I have the homestead. And again, it was very providential because we were visiting a church this morning and the pastor was talking about Ecclesiastes 12 and how we pursue all these things that don't satisfy us. If Jesus is second, then we're blind to everything else, to his guidance. And it was very, very timely. I'm very thankful for that, and I'm excited to see what's next. So thanks for coming along with me.